Good afternoon. So if you are one of those groups that follow, a while back, we came out with a presentation on the fall of the 501c3 and the rise of the L3C. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Randolph, and I'm with the Center for Nonprofit and Community Development. The video you're about to watch is pre-recorded. I want to emphasize that I'm quite excited about this new type of charitable organization that's coming into play, known as L3C. An L3C is a combination of a for-profit and a nonprofit. Unlike a nonprofit, an L3C, which is a charitable company, has the ability to bring in different streams of income that a nonprofit could never bring in. This new type of charitable organization intrigues me because it provides an opportunity for those that are doing charitable work to tap in to unlimited types of investment that increases the money flow, the cash flow to bring about your charitable cause. So that being said, let's jump into the pre-recorded presentation. Keep in mind that this new type of charitable organization is changing the narrative in terms of how do we work with creating unlimited income to solve our social problems. Good afternoon, and welcome to our ongoing professional training presentation. My name is Michael Randolph, and I'm with the Center for Nonprofit and Community Development. Tonight's presentation is going to focus on what's known as an L3C. An L3C is a low-profit, limited liability company. There are a lot of unique things about an L3C. Let me quickly highlight at least one or two before we go into the presentation, and then we'll come back to some of the same highlights that I made and go in detail on it. One of the unique things about an L3C is that it operates just like it operates in terms of having combined the nonprofit with the for-profit to create a unique type of company. And now, so I think by far, of all of the presentations that we do, This is one of the ones that I'm really intrigued with. One of the ones that I'm really intrigued with. 501c3 has this limitation in terms of what funding it can get. For the most part, 501c3 can only get funding from foundations, corporations, individual donations, government grants, and things of that nature, that type of funding. So it's limited to that. In L3C, which is one of the newest types of charitable corporations, also focus on charity, but its source of funding is different. And we're going to highlight that a little bit later on about that source of funding and why it is unlimited funding as opposed to a regular 501c3 corporation. So in order to meet the requirements by way of IRS to qualify for this type of status, an L3C must focus on charitable and educational purposes. Its purpose should not be for the production of income or the appreciation of property. Again, we go back to that charitable nature. It does not have as a purpose anything related to political or legislative arena. Shouldn't get engaged in politics or the legislative process. Just like a 501c3. There are two types of funding coming out of IRS for tax-exempt corporations. Keep in mind that foundations and corporations have to give back at least 5% of its net assets that has to go towards a charitable project in order for these corporations to get the benefits and subsidies from the government, from the federal government. So let's talk about the two types of funding. First is the 501c3. We all know about a nonprofit 501c3. Nonprofits are generally driven by grants. For the most part, most of its funding is coming from grants. On the other hand, the second type of funding, known as pro-profit related investment, this type of funding goes to what we're talking about now in L3C. That's how an L3C is able to get those dollars necessary that it can leverage and bring in even more dollars. These profit-related investments, the interest rate is anywhere from no to low interest rate. Let's go on and talk more about this new type of charitable entity called an L3C. Okay, let me point out some things about the L3C. First of all, while it is a charitable organization, it's also a business. So its focus is on financial self-sufficiency. And a lot of these dollars to get it started up is going to be coming from by way of foundations, banks, other financial institutions that they can get low interest loans from. Let's talk a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. They can also, unlike a regular nonprofit, leverage angel as well as venture capital. And then the other thing is that the ability to invest and get and track investors. So let's break down the different benefits for L3C. First, we talked about the earlier the program-related investment. These are loans that banks make, and these loans for the L3C, the interest rate is either no or low. Normally, especially in the business sector, unless you are a corporate 500 corporation, you're more likely going to get some interest rate. But because you're an L3C, your interest rates will be compatible to those interest rates of a Fortune 500 corporation. It can be either interest-free loans or below market rate loans. Then you can engage in loan participation and loan guarantees. If you're in business and you're at the corporate level, you know what these gems can bring about. Then another benefit is equity investment. Let's talk about an equity investment. And then of course it's leases. You got a bank or some other type of institution that has a vacant building. Well, you probably can get that to next to nothing if you're an L3C. Keep in mind, an L3C is a combination of a nonprofit and a for-profit combined together. Unfortunately, and you're going to learn about this later on in the presentation, there are only limited states that represent, that recognize this type of business entity, the L3C. We'll talk about that later. So we talked earlier about equity investment that a L3C can partake in. For one, owner investment in his own business. Remember we talked about the program-related investment? Well, that's equity that you bring into the business. The other is you can invest in shares of public companies. Another investment is that you can another investment is the acquisition of stake in another company through merger. Another is venture capital investments for startups. All this can be taken into play if you were an L3C. I love it. Public-private investment into mature companies. You can actually take your money and invest it in another company. But that company has to be focused on purpose and charity type of thing. You can get engaged into common stocks and preferred stocks. In fact, you can sell company stocks of your company to folks. And you can also invests in either common stocks or other types of stocks. So you can see here we looking at in a lot of things that an L3C can bring to the table. As a for-profit, an L3C can raise capital, issuing debt, or even selling its shares. So this type of charitable organization offer an opportunity to bring in needed money for charitable cause that is that are unlimited. So how do you start an L3C? Well, first you have to file your articles of organization. Then you want to get a name for your L3C. You want to create a purpose. You want to have a resident agent information, have that information as well. Then you have to talk about what is the management structure. What is the duration of the L3C? Is it ongoing? Is it only going to come in for 3 years, 2 years? You have to get a tax identification number. Then you definitely want to have a business and strategic plan. Now, existing nonprofit can create a for-profit arm of this nonprofit if you're in one of the states that are coming up. If you're not in the state currently recognized by recognizing L3C, and your organization is national in scope, you can actually create a nonprofit by filing a formal corporation in that state. And once you get in that state, you can use your L3C in order to bring in the dollars. So some other benefits to an L3C, or you want to know, is taxation. Unlike a nonprofit, you will be taxed. As you know, nonprofits, 501c3s are not taxed, but they are also limited in what money they can bring in. L3Cs are allowed to make profits, which are taxable by IRS. On the other hand, 501c 501c3 organizations generally are not structured to make profits. They're not. Distributing organization assets. We know that if you are a nonprofit, that you will be prohibited from distributing your organization assets to the owner. But if 501c3, I'm sorry, an L3C, if you decide to dissolve, decide to go out of business, you can actually sell all of the assets to that business and put it right in your pocket. That's the beauty of an L3C, unlike a nonprofit. Nonprofits are prohibited from distributing its assets to its owner or board members. They have to distribute it to a government agency, another nonprofit, or a business. In contrast, let me say it again, an L3C is permitted to distribute the proceeds from its activity to the owner. So, currently, there are over, as of 2020, 1,700 L3C. The states that currently recognize these type of entities Louisiana, Maine, Michigan, Rhode Island, Utah, Vermont, Wyoming, and Illinois as well. So if you want to start a entity in Chicago, you can do it because you're in a state that recognizes that. So I hope this has been helpful to you. At some point, this thing of L3C is going to go, it's going to take on a national appearance. I see it, and I see it throughout the United States in the next 10 years as a new type of charitable organization. It has just so many benefits. Now, if you're an if you're a nonprofit in Tampa and you wanted to expand your nonprofit to one of these states so that you can create your L3C leg of your nonprofit, the only thing you have to do is to submit a foreign corporation request. And foreign means you're not from that state, you're coming from another state. And then you want to convert that nonprofit down there to an L3C. That gives you an opportunity to bring in so many different ways of bringing into capital into your organization. If you're an organization that focuses on if you're an organization that focuses on create affordable housing nationally, well, you can create an L3C in another state, in one of these states here. And because you're able to bring in so many different dollars, you can use those dollars to channel back into your nonprofit in Florida. That's another unique thing. You can actually bring in dollars to your existing nonprofit by creating this type of charitable organization in the state that's currently recognized because you bring in so many different types of money. So if you're definitely an entrepreneur type of nonprofit, and you got all kinds of business ideas or having something to sell, be it a product or a service, then you really need to think about being an L3C.